Hello everyone, this is part 17 of What If Naruto Was Madara's Brother, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto sat alone in one of the castle towers of the royal palace. Here, away from the hustle and bustle, he sat on the stairs. His hands gently caressed Dawn, and one could see fine liquid drops hanging on the fine sword, with more joining every few seconds. He should not be feeling like this, certainly not after he managed an actual peace treaty with the Senjus. But with that came the condition of marrying someone he didn't love. Most of all, it implied setting aside someone whom he had genuine feelings for. Hashirama had reluctantly agreed to not make Naori Uchiha marry him in exchange because Naruto warned him that Tajima would rather choose war than making his only living sister a hostage. Hashirama, in his naivety or pure heart, agreed to trust Naruto with his sister's life. But on the other hand, the Senju Lord did ask to share power equally between the Uchiha and Senju, a task which Naruto knew would be the end of him because his family would rather eat their own guts than relinquish even a penny to their hated enemies. Naruto had also promised to keep Tsunade safe, treat her as his lawful wife, give her all the respect and comfort deserving of his life partner. It was the only way for him to keep the Uchihas and Senjus from destroying themselves. So many promises made to so many people made him wonder as to whether future historians would call him K as most called him today, or the dragon who promised. Another pain crushed his heart as he remembered his conversation with Mikoto an hour ago. Flashback. An hour ago, Mikoto had been waiting for him when he entered the shared chambers. He had been dreading this conversation, but one look at her face showed him that she already knew. Itachi told me, she clarified, on seeing his worried gaze. What did he tell you? Asked Naruto hesitantly, making a wistful smile cross her lips. That there is nothing more powerful in this world than a just and loyal man. I am looking at one right now. He clenched his fists tightly and suppressed the lump in his tea. Tears threatened to burst from his eyes as she gave him a knowing nod. Why was duty always the hardest to perform? Was the price for loyalty always the highest? Many said love was always the death of loyalty. But in his case, both love and loyalty would someday be the end of him. I did what I thought was right, he said weakly, his voice barely above a whisper. I know, she replied gently. We attack the capital before dawn tomorrow. Hashirama will focus on capturing the daimyo and his family. Our job will be to neutralize the city defenders as quickly as possible. The Senjus will provide most of their forces to aid us, but Atama and Tsunade Senju shall command them. Our troops shall be commanded by me, however overall command of our combined forces lies in my hands, explained Naruto seriously, trying to keep his mind away from the painful topic of his marriage to the Senju princess. And prompted Mikoto, and didn't miss him wince. I will marry Tsunade Senju once we have the capital. The war is over. A lone tear slipped from her eye as she marched towards the window and quickly inhaled some fresh air to overcome her own panic. He tried to get to her but stopped halfway through with a constricted look visible in his eyes. I'm sorry, Mikoto. She didn't detect any lies or fake sympathy in his words. He sounded genuinely sorry, which made it only worse for her because it was he who would suffer more than her. He might not love her yet, but she had loved him for years. Watching him go through something like this was breaking her heart. How do you do it? She asked sadly. How do you set aside your entire life for someone else? How do you remain strong in the face of so much heartbreak? He was silent for several long moments as her questions echoed in his heart. They were the ones he had asked himself for many years, and he had come up with only one answer. A distant face of a smiling boy carrying another younger boy on his shoulders flashed through his mind. If he could focus some more, he could hear that distant voice again in his heart. I learned from the best. He taught me to be strong in the face of danger, to have the heart to stand up for justice, to remain loyal in the face of obstacles, and most of all to live your entire life for your family without expecting anything in return. Izuna lived and s by that honor. I guess I am the same. In my heart, maybe I am still that little boy clinging to his brother's back, that perhaps I am the man he could have been. She had always known he had loved his brother deeply, more than anyone else. But today, she perhaps saw the true him for the first time. She didn't see his face but that of Izuna Uchiha looking back at her. All of Naruto's choices, his hardships, his pain, his loyalty, his duty, it had all been conducted on the basis of the teachings he learned from Izuna. "You're a good man, Naruto," she whispered with a proud smile. They both looked at each other, conveying all they felt with their eyes. Mikoto couldn't stop the tears falling from her eyes now, but he remained strong. "You deserve someone better than me. Someone who'll put you first before his duty and loyalty," said Naruto bitterly. "Good luck on your journey, Naruto Uchiha," she whispered. He stopped any of his pending explanations or apologies on hearing those words. They hit him like a silent wave sweeping his world away as he felt the connection shared between them break, for she had released him. "You too, Mikoto." Those words were barely out of his lips before he turned away in order to disappear. The tears were now clawing at his eyelids and his sea felt crushed. "Naruto." He swiftly turned around and marched back straight towards her. Their lips crashed against each other as their silent tears now clashed openly against their cheeks. They both devoured each other, trying to capture the last essence of each other and yet at the same time preparing to say goodbye. He was the one who broke the K, gently followed by K, her forehead, her cheeks, her nose, her chin, as if he was memorizing every part of her in his brain while she did the same for him with her eyes. When they glanced at each other one last time, he saw the life he could have had with her. A small house with two little boys playing with each other while they both watched them with smiles on their faces. Of Madara sneaking in through the window with gifts in his arms, making the boys squeal in delight, and Mikoto giving her brother-in-law an admonishing glare for his antics. Of Tajima and Naori sitting beside their entire family, regaling the grandchildren out off grandnephews with the past exploits. He walked away before his resolve could crumble in the face of that wishful dream. Flashback end. He got up from the stairs and wiped away his tears. It was easy to do one's duty when it cost one nothing, but most difficult when it cost them everything. Loyalty was easy to give but most hard to follow through. Words had power, but it was always actions that were remembered. Shizuka had foreseen him making 3 difficult choices in his life, ones which would determine not just his future but that of the world. He had not believed her then, but now it was his choice that had made possible a true peace between the Uchiha and Senju. His choice that was now about to join 2B families and fulfill the Sage of Six Paths dream. If this was the first choice, then he dreaded what the other 2 would ask of him. He had already his lover, risked the anger of his family and bannermen, and placed his faith in a family that he had hated for most of his life. Whatever the case, a choice was made. And he had to live with it for the rest of his life. Kurama had said that he reminded the Fox of Indra. Would the Uchiha founder make the same choices as he had made? Naruto had a feeling the man wouldn't, maybe even Izuna wouldn't, maybe it was what set him apart from those 2 Uchiha. He admired them and was like them in many aspects, but he doubted those men would make the choices he had made. With those thoughts in mind, he walked outside the tower in order to carry out his choice. Tsunade had been waiting for her betrothed to emerge from his self-imposed isolation in the tower. It was not to say, she had not tried to get in but had been stopped by none other than Shisui Uchiha. She had been surprised by his presence and even tried to irritate him for stopping her, but the man had more patience than Tsunade had barbs, and as a result, she was defeated. It had been more than an hour and never once had she seen Shisui even twitch a muscle. The same went for Itachi, who if possible had not even said a word to her. Kan's guard, they were called. Loyal and good men who had followed Naruto for years. If rumors were to be believed, the first ones to pledge their service to Naruto despite his dark past. Devoted themselves to him when he was not even the prospective leader of the Uchiha in the future and had nothing to offer them except disgrace. If she had not heard Naruto's story, she would have considered these men fools for following such a vile man. But after hearing the truth, she knew they had seen the true worth of her betrothed and made their own choice. It made her feel a little jealous. While she was loved and respected by her people and allies alike, it was mostly because she was once Butsuma Senju's only daughter and later on as the only sister of her brothers. Despite her skills in fighting and healing, people still saw her as a princess and a person who needed protection. They would follow her into battle because she was Hashirama's sister and not because of who she was. Naruto, on the other hand, was her complete opposite. Born into a family that almost hated him, losing his brothers early in his life, followed by losing his respect and status in the clan. Naruto was someone destined to be hated and forgotten, yet he had not given up. With his sense of loyalty and duty, he built himself back up from the ashes of his life. Became the best swordsman in the elemental nations, inspired men like the Kinsguard to follow him, regained the trust and respect of his people through victories, and most of all brought an end to a war that had lasted thousands of years. She would probably never say it out loud, but in a way, she felt small in comparison to someone like that, despite her princess status. The rumors don't do your beauty justice, princess, said Shisui with a gentle smile. Tsunade suspiciously looked at the Uchiha. People who often said those words were mostly hungry and lustful dogs, but she couldn't find a hint of lust in those dark black eyes. Itachi on the other hand actually looked even more disinterested in her appearance. She looked at these men in a different light, remembering what they were famous for. The morning star they called Shisui, wielder of the ancestral sword Fury that was currently hanging on his hip. He was Naruto's best friend, and if she was to develop any cordial relations with her betrothed, much less any Uchiha, she had to make this man her ally. That was not to discredit the silent shadow who was observing her every move. Itachi Uchiha unnerved her in a way Tsunade couldn't describe. The man was watching her like a hawk, but strangely his eyes didn't display any emotion. Nor hate, fear or even lust. Those kind of men were the most dangerous, and if she ever tried to even lay a finger on Naruto, this man's sword would be the last thing she would ever see. There were other Kinsguard members she had seen but yet to meet. It was actually the matter of one of them which had brought Tsunade here to have a conversation with Naruto in the first place. Well, they won't matter if my future husband continues to hate me, said Tsunade hesitantly, making Shisui grimace. Surprisingly, it was Itachi who spoke. He doesn't hate you, Senju. He hates your judgmental attitude, said Itachi flatly. What? Hissed Tsunade, a vein popping across her forehead. Shisui sighed before sending his friend and fellow Kinsguard a reprimanding glare that made the younger boy shut up. When he looked back at the princess, she looked about ready to explode. So this was the infamous temper of hers. What he means to say is there are many things you don't know about Naruto or our clan and allies alike. Our factions have been at war for a very long time, so it is natural for each side to have the grudges. But Naruto is willing to look past them so that all of us can live. But it is a two-way street, explained Shisui patiently. What do you two think of this peace treaty? I want your opinion, said Tsunade insistently. Her brother was placing a lot of trust in one Uchiha, even going so far as to rebel against the daimyo who was their staunch ally. Naruto did look trustable, but it wouldn't matter if other Uchiha had different ideas of peace. It is not our place. We trust Naruto, that should be enough, replied Itachi calmly, which only seemed to aggravate Tsunade further on hearing the Uchiha's disinterested tone. Not all Uchihas want to continue this never-ending war. Some of us would prefer peace if it can be achieved, it's just we are extremely loyal to our families. If they chose war, then we cannot let them fight alone and It is true that Uchihas have plenty of hate in their hearts for their enemies, but it is also true that our clan is one of the most loyal in this world. Stubborn, prideful, but loyal, explained Shisui patiently. And you think Naruto can achieve this peace? Convince Madara and the others to back down? Asked Tsunade skeptically. From what she had seen and heard of Madara, that was a bleak possibility. She watched Shisui grimace, which only further fueled her doubts. Madara loves Naruto, more than you or anyone else can imagine. I have faith Naruto can bring our side to the negotiation table. What happens after that depends on the actions and words of both sides, revealed Shisui. You're quite honest. For an Uchiha, said Tsunade with a wry smile. I'll take that as a compliment, acquiesced Shisui with a faint smile. He's here, announced Itachi. When Naruto stepped out of the tower, he was surprised to see her, and in turn, Tsunade didn't miss the still moist cheeks of his. It was all the confirmation she had needed regarding her doubts about a certain Kinsguard member. On seeing her, he informed his two friends to stay back, much to Itachi's protests. Still, he managed to convince them and came towards her. He offered her his arm, which she stared at suspiciously. Wasn't he being a little eager? It would be better if our people see unity among us before tomorrow, he explained simply. It was then Tsunade noticed the nicely hidden Senju guards lurking in the nearby alleys, watching them like trained hawks. So, Her brothers were worried about her despite the new piece. Enough to send highly skilled ninjas to keep watch over her. It made her feel happy and bitter at the same time. To think, Naruto saw right through them was another point Tsunade noted about his observation power. They both walked in silence with him as rigid as a rock and her watching his every step. They made such an awkward pair that she doubted even her loyal guards could not stop sniggering about. Despite the awkwardness, she actually enjoyed the silence as it allowed her time to look at him more closely. His skin was fair like the moonlight, which was a trademark among Uchihas. His shoulders were broad and strong, earning an approving nod from her. She felt the tension in the muscles of his arm that was connected with hers, but she also felt the strength. But it was his hair that fascinated her most. She had always seen Uchiha with weird spiky hair that were always black in color. They were in such weird shapes that many Uchiha didn't even bother to tame them. But Naruto had light brown hair that were as soft as silk, a fact which was easily displayed by the wind, easily able to ruffle them in every direction. One strand of hair occasionally settled down over his left eye and Tsunade had to fight back her urge to remove it. She was frustrated when he never glanced at her the way she was doing at him. Quite a stalker, are you? She flushed on being caught red-handed staring at him. A sarcastic retort was about to pass her lips when she noticed his wide grin was very weak and his eyes were anything but jovial. It was a poor mask of normalcy and strength, one which she saw through instantly. Well, at least you're not ugly, Tsunade, unable to stop herself. He tried to resist but failed as an amused smile came on his face. Tsunade on the other hand was stunned. His smile was so different than anything she had ever seen before. When he smiled truly, his eyes sparkled with kindness and empathy. His lips twisted to form an amused smirk, and two faint dimples were born across his cheeks that enhanced his boyish looks. It made her blush and look away or risk him teasing her again. That's got to be the weirdest but endearing compliment I've ever received, he commented amusedly. Well then, better take it, replied Tsunade petulantly, making him shake his head at her antics. They both had walked enough distance to reach a beautiful fountain that had a lion roaring water out of its mouth. He didn't know if it was meant to be intimidating or laughable. These capitalists had a strange taste. From the corner of his eye, he saw Shisui and Itachi maintain a respectable distance from them. The same was the case with the Senju guards. Although both sides looked ready to defend their sworn leaders should the situation arise. Knowing Itachi and Shisui, the Senjus would be S before they even unleashed their swords. Still, deciding to forget those dark thoughts, he decided to focus back on his future wife. The term reminding him again of what he had to accept her in his life. Tsunade was currently busy staring at the strange fountain which allowed him a chance to sneak a peek. Despite their rough start, he had never once not considered her beautiful. Even more so than the other women he had been with, much to his shame for his ability of seeing the truth. She had a heart-shaped face and a strange diamond-shaped seal on her forehead. He didn't know what purpose it served, but it actually enhanced her beauty. Her skin was more fairer than him, which was saying something because the Senjus usually were dark-skinned except for a few anomalies. Her golden blonde hair were tied into fine ponytail that reached up to her waist. Even the glowing sun couldn't shine more than her hair. Her face always looked gentle and welcoming when she smiled kindly, and menacing when one of her sinister and cold smiles took hold. But it were her eyes that fascinated him most. Those hazel orbs had so much life in them, so much happiness and positive vibes were overflowing from those orbs, which were a stark proof of her not being exposed to the things he had, which was a good thing, for the world could not handle two of him. That thought made him laugh out loud, much to her surprise. What is it? She inquired curiously. Just realized how different we are, and it's a good thing because the world cannot handle two of either one of us, he joked. Much to his surprise, she burst out laughing as well, and in a manner which would have made most Uchiha noblewomen beat red in embarrassment. But he found the laugh quite endearing, for it was free and unhindered by manners, something which most Uchiha were always bound by. When she finally stopped laughing, the tension between them had subsided greatly and went even low when Naruto offered to sit down with her at the edge of the fountain. He proved his manners by making her grab a seat first before taking one for himself, and while they were close, he maintained a respectable distance in order to not make her feel overwhelmed. Such minor things would have escaped him had he not been with other women before, and had Naori not hammered these manners in his thick brain over the past decade. Those thoughts again made him feel more relaxed and at ease. Which was a good thing, for the next words out of Tsunde's mouth were completely not what he had expected to hear. Is there any other woman in your life? He looked at her seriously, all playfulness gone from his eyes. Despite the shaky peace, he was yet to trust her enough. A fact which she saw through. I am not judging you, clarified Tsunade, sending a thankful glance at Shisui, who gave her a small encouraging smile. Naruto looked at her again, more specifically in her eyes. There he found no lies, which eased him a little. He thought about refuting the question but decided against it, considering she would find out sooner or later. It was better if it came from him. I had asked Tsunade, wincing slightly as the implication behind his answer became clear. I ended it, and it is not for any reason you might think, clarified Naruto earnestly. Tsunade had to steady herself in order to not lash out at him. In her experience, men always abandoned their lovers when they found better ones. And she was no small cash, if that was the reason he had left his former lover. Shisui's advice came running back in her mind, which prevented her from going down that line of thinking. Deciding to take a chance, she listened to him. While it is true ours is a political marriage and there is no love between us yet. But that does not change the fact that I will not dishonor you as my future wife or her by carrying on an illegitimate relation behind your back. I respect you enough not to do that, and I love. He froze. I love her enough not to do that. He couldn't believe what he was about to say to Tsunade, more than that what he was about to admit to himself even. All this time, he had refused to believe, and only now when Mikoto was gone because of his choices did he realize. Even Tsunade saw through him, even if he never managed to finish that sentence. He closed his eyes waiting for that lashing he deserved to receive from her, but was surprised when she actually entwined her hands with his. I'm glad you were honest with me. Stunned, he looked at her and saw a newfound respect for himself in her eyes. Would it be there if he lied to her? Would it still be there if he told her that he had 2 children on the way? She might be accepting of his past affair, but he highly doubted she would accept his children from another woman. Tsunade Senju did not seem that kind of woman to him. More than that, he could not trust her with this secret. Not yet, and certainly not with the lives of his children. So he decided to keep his silence. I cannot say if I can love you or not, princess. But I will give you the respect and consideration as my lawful wife, if you give me the same in return, he proposed. This was the best he could offer her at the moment. Tsunade. He blinked, unable to understand why she was smiling, and said her name. If you want us to treat us each other as equals, then I would like you to call me by name. As I would do the same for you, Naruto, she proposed, looking at him hopefully. It felt strange to hear her calling his name. It sent a warm feeling through his sea, for every other time she had mocked him by calling him K. And if she was willing to take this first step, then so was he. Very well, Tsunade, he said with a small smile. It feels strange. Us sitting beside each other like this. Perhaps we are the first Senju and Uchiha to even sit like this without making any threats or each other's tea, she realized out loud, her surprise easy for him to see. He fought back the urge to tell her that his grandfather had offered the same chance to her grandfather. An action for which his family was butchered. Was he committing the same mistake? Was he as deluded as his grandfather? He could only imagine the hell Tajima and Madara were going to give him for making this piece happen. It would be a miracle if they didn't tear him apart at first sight, and his best chance would be to convince his aunt to get him an audience with those 2 men. Naori was the most rational person in their family, and even if she hated the Senjus like Tajima, she would do anything to save their people from annihilation. So he sat there contemplating his fateful meeting with his family while carrying out mundane conversation with Tsunade. No great secrets or unbreakable love confessions were made, and it was most definitely not love at first sight. But the initial prejudices they had against each other greatly mellowed down, which was a significant achievement in his eyes. She even decided to call him by his name, as he did the same for her. They both parted on this small but shared mutual agreement, feeling more at ease with each other than they were 2 hours ago. Shisui and Itachi both approached towards him as the Senjus retreated after their princess. Are the men ready? Asked Naruto seriously. They are, informed Shisui confidently. But they are not happy fighting beside enemies they have been battling for 1,000 years, pointed Itachi flatly, without mincing any words about the true morale. Naruto winced, but it was not anything he hadn't expected. Well, if we don't figure out how to fight together, then 1,000 years from now our descendants would be calling us fools for not setting aside our differences in the face of Esther civilians, spat Naruto. Think you can rally two bitter sides to fight for you? Challenged Shisui with a smirk. A cunning smile spread across Naruto's lips as an idea came to his mind in regards to this problem. Not for me. Naruto stared at the mixed bunch of ninjas standing before him in the vast training field. Usually, these men and women would be fighting to kill each other, but today they found themselves fighting side by side. The unlikely scenario was clear to see in the way every ninja was distrustfully glancing at the one of the other side. Tsunade and Atama were there as well to keep command over the 2,500 senjus who were going to join the mission of seizing the capital. Aiding them were Naruto, the Konosuba, and 500 Uchiha faction members mostly made up of Shimura, Namikaze and few Uchiha allies. Together, their force could muster a paltry 3,000-strong force that was supposed to go up against a force of 9,000-strong royal guards located across the city. Many of whom were former ninjas who took up service with the daimyo rather than serve any clans as individuals. The problem Naruto faced was not the overwhelming numbers of the enemy, but rather their wide distribution across the city, and he had a feeling traps would be already in place against anyone that tried to harm the royal family's rule. While majority of those 9,000 royal guards were samurai or normal guards whom ninjas could take on with ease, that fact was made near impossible for Naruto if his mixed forces didn't coordinate or trust each other on the battlefield. These ninjas may stand grudgingly beside each other now, but on the battlefield they would protect only their own, which would be a disaster in making for the combined side. Hashirama had taken 500 of his best soldiers with him, promising to capture the royal family. Naruto had offered some of his men to aid the Senju head but was refused since Hashirama didn't trust Uchiha not to arrest the royal family. To pacify this refusal, Hashirama granted Naruto combined leadership over the united forces with Atama acting as his second-in-command followed by Tsunade. It was a fair offer. But how was he supposed to lead these men when he couldn't even trust the majority of them not to arrest him in the back? Well, this is the risk you took, whispered Kurama sarcastically. Naruto grimaced but nodded in acknowledgement. He could not use the fox's help or risk reducing the city full of innocents to ashes. He had to personally lead this small army, make sure they attacked only the soldiers, leaving the non-combatants alone, and not destroy their property even. It wouldn't be a good start to ninja rule, if in the process they burned down the lives of innocent civilians. So many things to be taken care of by one man. No one ever said duty could be such a pain in the ass. With a deep breath and checking his golden armor and sword one last time, he stepped forward and looked sharply at the assembled army. They had already taken care of the sentries and the guards in the outermost sections of the royal castle, while Hashirama was currently busy making his way towards the royal family. So far, no noises were made, but he doubted that would remain the same for long. "I'll lead this attack," announced Naruto clearly for every person to hear. His supporters gave him proud nods and would readily fight for him. The Senjus and their allies on the other hand looked ready to maul him to death with their hard eyes. "Form up," commanded Naruto, and while his supporters followed the order readily, the other side still looked hesitant until one harsh glare from Tsunade made him follow through. Atama also said some encouraging words but was only heard by those most close to his position, leaving majority of his army clueless. Naruto sighed because this was so not happening before such an important battle. These people needed to understand what was at stake rather than their old rivalry. And there was only one way he could achieve that. He unleashed a mild force of his chakra, bringing all the attention back to himself before speaking loudly for everyone to hear. "They say I am the worst of the worst. But if you don't have the balls to fight against your common enemy, then that makes every one of you a coward," he yelled. Kurama grinned when he saw the boy's words ignited the fragile ego of every shinobi. Their mistrustful looks were now replaced by anger and a desire to pommel Naruto for his outrageous insult. If the boy didn't change the situation soon, they might very well do that. "The enemy outnumbers us, and shouldn't we try to find another solution with the daimyo?" asked one of the Senjus bitterly. "If we fight together, then I'll show you how we can win," said Naruto passionately. He saw many staring at him calculatingly. The Senjus and their allies might hate his guts, but they were aware of his past victories, and despite the grudges, many now seemed interested in listening to a proven commander even if he was an Uchiha. Naruto decided to use this golden opportunity quickly as he looked all of them in the eye. Don't fight for me, don't fight for Hashirama or Madara. Don't fight for glory or riches, because we won't get any here. More and more ninjas were now stepping closer to him with intense look in their eyes. He didn't know if they wanted to listen or just wanted to S him outright. It is your freedom and independence the daimyo wishes to take. It is your settlements he wants to rule, your families he wishes to command, your women and children he wishes to lord over. If you bow to him now, your descendants shall be his S for eternity. Are you going to be cowards and allow a civilian to do that to you? Yelled Naruto fiercely. Every ninja's eyes were as hard as stone, B was evident on their faces, an anger which neither Tsunade or Itama had ever seen before. Stunned, they looked at the man who had instigated such emotions within every Uchiha, Senju and their allies alike. Naruto unleashed dawn-earning surprised gasps from many who had not seen one of the most ancient weapons of the elemental nations. They all flocked even more closer to the boy in golden armor as he pointed his weapon at the vast capital ahead of them. There are 9,000 strong men in this city, roared Naruto. His Sharingan came alive as he roared at the top of his voice by raising his sword high in the air. Let's go K them. For the first time in history, Uchiha and Senju gave out a ferocious single battle cry that was about to shake the foundations of the elemental nations. Naruto quickly jumped up to the walls of the royal castle as thousands of ninjas followed after him. He was thankful on seeing Mikoto still fighting for him despite what had happened between them. He was brought out of his thoughts when alarm bells finally went off across the city and the ninja army saw the first defenders rushing out. This is going to be B, said Kagami with a grimace. Hundreds will S, brother, said Shisui in a resigned voice, as he watched the royal defenders arriving in every street. Thousands, whispered Kurama. Naruto was not undeterred by all those doubts and gloomy predictions, but unlike the others he didn't have the luxury to display any such thoughts. He looked at Tsunade who gave him a resolute nod before looking at the assembled ninja army. Come with me and take this city. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.